What is going on, YouTube world? How are we doing today? Perfect Gentleman podcast coming at you. Why do we listen to long form podcasts? My way of paying homage to the long form creators that have come before. I was watching an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast on YouTube, and the guest was the famous director Robert Rodriguez. And he kind of goes into a couple of different quotes and things that he talks about. So I just kind of want to highlight some of that, and hopefully I'll be able to clip a little bit and not get any points on YouTube for clipping it up. But he talks about the baseline of, you spent a year doing something, you spent a whole year trying really hard at something, and it didn't work, it didn't pan out the way that you wanted it to. That's just the baseline. That happens all the time with real creatives who work on real big budget things. The one quote that I want to focus on, I want to read it to you real quick. It's, you worked on something for a year and it didn't work. That's the baseline for everyone else that hadn't done it before. So why does that change for you? Your past success does not entitle you to anything. Tarantino didn't think Pulp Fiction was a hit. All of the DPs he showed it to, except me, didn't think it was a hit until it won Cannes Film Festival.
My diary, right down to the hour. We went out to dinner. I mean, he was so into Pulp Fiction. Ever since I met him, my next movie was going to be Pulp Fiction. I visited the set. He was into it. He finished the movie. And I said, hey, addict, because I live here in Austin. I get to hang out with him when I go to LA. How'd your movie come out? It's not the one. It's like, it still feels like a movie Quentin would make. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, it just doesn't feel like a real movie. It feels like another movie Quentin would make. And I was trying to be the supportive friend because I knew how much he put in. Well, it should be different. He's like, man, this wouldn't have it. It was like 2 a.m. and I was dropping him off at home after he'd been out. And so I went back to Austin, and he had a screening for all his director friends. And I couldn't be at because I lived in Austin. So I called one of them. I said, how was the screening? And he was a little bummed. He goes, no, this isn't the one for him. I was like, really? Yeah, it's just it's just not it. And I asked him this, and he goes, you're right. He'd forgotten about that moment. He goes, in fact, yeah, people didn't get it. And in fact, he didn't get it either. He wasn't careful with it. In fact, one filmmaker even said, I want to sit you down and tell you all the things that are wrong with this movie. But I'll wait till you get back from Cannes. He goes to Cannes, he wins Cannes, and the friend left him a message saying, well, what the hell do I know? I've only made one movie. Everyone's mind was changed. So he was surprised by it too. So I just want people to hear that, because
guess what? He kept working on that because that's his baseline. His baseline is doing the work. And in terms of long-form podcasters, there are a ton of reasons of why you should listen to, in my opinion, the long-form back-and-forth type conversation podcast where you can really start to learn about people, because there's a whole lot of movies that, if you don't know who Robert Rodriguez is, that were semi-groundbreaking in terms of the way that they were shot. They are movies that are cult classics that everybody who watched them and liked them still will go back and rewatch them. Movies like the Sin City series, movies like Desperado, just those 6 films alone, I think it was, between the Desperado series and the Sin City series, incredible. Just incredible. But he didn't think that those were going to work until they were already, he had already done the work. He had already made the thing. For Sin City, he gives the example of when he was trying to attract Bruce Willis to be the star, they set everything up as if they were shooting for the first scene, shot it with him in it, showed it to him, and that was when he signed on to actually do the film. So they did all.
Script. We'll shoot the opening scene. I'm going to fly you down so you can watch. Brought Josh Hartnett, Marley Shelton. That opening scene in Sin City, that was our test. 10-hour shoot day. And Marley Shelton comes up to me and says, why did I hire this guy to kill me? I go, I don't know. Let's go ask Frank. He should know. It's not in the book, but I'm curious myself. So Frank answered her question and said, I want to do this movie. Oh, no, let's wait. We had a whole process. I'm going to shoot the opening. I'm going to cut it together. I'm going to put in the effects. I'm going to put in the music. I'm going to put in fake titles. Then we're going to watch it. And if you like what you see, then we do the rights and we make the movie. If you don't like it and you're still on the fence about it, just keep it as a short film. Keep the gift. So, we make the opening sequence. He loves it. He wants to do it. I take it to Bruce Willis first, which was cool about doing it that way, which is unheard of. When I went to his agent was like, wait. He leans forward very dramatically. You brought actors down. Oh, because I told him, this is Frank Miller. He's one of our greatest artists. He wrote Hollywood. He got screwed around. And the guy goes, welcome to Hollywood. Like that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I just respect the artist. So I just thought, hey, you'll be a partner. You're going to co-direct this with me. And we're going to make this. I'm going to take all the risks. You're going to come down. We shot this opening, which I have. I want to show it to Bruce so he can see the book. So then he can see how it gets translated. It gets very dramatic. He goes, wait, you brought the actors down. You shot this. You did the effects for it. And you didn't have the rights. And I leaned in and I went, welcome to Texas. All these little monkeys spit out water. Frank was dying. It was super annoying.
So they did all the work ahead of time and then showed it to him and like, look, you're already in it. You have to do this. That is such genius level work ethic. It's really hard to not be good at something if that's the work ethic that you're going to put into it. Personally, I don't listen to Joe Rogan because I think Joe Rogan is so great. I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast because of the diversity of guests, the crazy topics that sometimes get talked about, the hilarious moments between him and his comedy friends. There's a whole bunch of reasons to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, but I like that Joe is exploratory enough in his questioning that he lets people be themselves and then he gets them to keep talking about themselves so that you actually get the full experience of, if this is your first time hearing somebody, you get the unadulterated version of a full spectrum conversation with them, which is great. Now, not everybody can hold a 3-hour conversation, so I get that there's not going to be long-form podcasts that everybody should listen to, and there's going to be topics that aren't for everybody. Like I said, I don't listen to every single one of his podcasts, but when it's somebody that I want to listen to or learn more about, there's not a better medium than a long-form podcast. Look at Lex Friedman is another great example of somebody who has really, really deep, meaningful conversations with very, very important people. You can tell when somebody is getting ready to put something out now because they go on all the important podcasts. Podcasts are a fantastic way for people to learn more about your topic. So with that being said, I think that everybody should find a long-form podcast of some sort to where the people that you want to hear more about are the people that are being brought onto the show. I listen to a lot of comedy, so I listen to a lot of comedians' podcasts. I like a lot of sports, so I listen to some sports podcasts. There's a lot of self-development content that I really like, and I listen to a lot of those podcasts. And there is a really cool side of getting to meet an artisan like Mr. Rodriguez is, because he talks about in another part of the conversation of passing that artisanal way about attacking life and how his son mastered Japanese knife making. And, you know, there are certain things about art forms that anybody who has had to use the tools of that artist can appreciate. Somebody who works in the culinary field, I'm very close with knives and chef knives, and, you know, I would like to regain my chef knife collection. I had a good knife set for a while and I don't have it anymore. Obviously, being a bartender, working in and around kitchens, chef knives are something that are very, very cool to me. And so when he said that his son had a situation where he was in some sort of a competition, I don't remember exactly the premise of it, but when he got to a point in the competition for this knife making competition that his son was in, his son said anytime that he couldn't figure out how to get himself out of a situation or out of a problem, that he would just pause and think and imagine that he was in a dream world and he had to solve this issue, and whatever came to him is what he did. So in the moment, you're supposed to be freaking out about something that you can't figure out. you take a deep breath and you just figure it out somehow intuitively. I don't know what kind of witchcraft or mind warping abilities that kid has, but that is so cool. And you don't hear a story like that coming from a guy like Robert Rodriguez, who, if you knew who he was before the podcast, then you're going into it hoping to hear about film and hoping to hear about Hollywood and maybe some of the craziness that he's seen and this, that, and the other. And what you get is this wholesome moment about his son's success in a completely separate field of artistry. And you just get to see two guys who are dads in Joe and Robert Rodriguez just having a really cool dad moment. And if you're not listening for the hour and a half to 2 hours it got to the podcast to where they're talking about that stuff, then you missed out. If you're not somebody who has the attention span to listen to a conversation for that long, then so be it. But that sucks for you. If you don't have that type of attention span, how are you ever going to read a book? How are you ever going to do a deep dive on anything if you can't listen to somebody talk for more than 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 seconds or whatever? Anyways, I wanted to pay homage to Joe and to Robert. That was a great conversation. It was a great video. But I think everybody needs to find some form of a long form podcast to where the creators or the artists or the people that you want to know more about are getting deeper into the people that they are, because you don't get cool moments like I've just talked about unless you are willing to stick around to get the good stuff. Anyways, hopefully we'll be having some podcast conversations here coming up in the near future. And shout out to Joe, shout out to Robert Rodriguez. That was a cool ass conversation. On to the next one. Peace.